And now I am incredibly blessed. And I want to make sure that you all put your hands together because we have a doctor and professor from the College of Medicine at the University of Ibadan in Nigeria, Adesola. Doctor, will I have you come forward? And then Amina, who is also the CEO and founder of Rebuilding Hope on Wheels initiative, also in Nigeria, are going to come forward to speak about life is water, water is life. Let's welcome them to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Well, life is water. Water is life. If you look at what we have here, you have it as water is life. And if you look at what we have on the screen, life is water. What I'll be presenting in collaboration with Amina is going to be a little bit of storytelling. And then basically, I believe you all agree that the human life is the most important commodity. It is the most important commodity. And life is water, from that background of the composition of water. But that is not exactly what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm going to be telling you a story of someone. But before I go on to tell you a story, because the story borders around a 7-year-old boy who is actually a very playful boy. And the boy is from the northern part of Nigeria. And usually in Nigeria, we have what we call tales by moonlight. Even though what the story I'll be sharing today is not about the moonlight. Maybe I would say for today it's going to be tale by sunrise because we are not in the evening. So before I go on, myself and Amina would also want to, it's a very simple song. We want to sing this song that children normally sing back home in Nigeria whenever they are active, whenever they are joyous. If you look at what we have on the screen, it depicts a boy that is actually very happy and joyous. So Amina, over to you. It's a simple song and you can just join us.
Okay, hi everyone, and Amina. Before the song, the picture depicts a small boy being spread, and everyone knows that people with spinal cord injuries, we have a problem with our temperature regulation. And back home, not all of us can afford AC or electricity for a fan or anything like that. So when the boy is crying, his grandmother spreads some water on his body to cool down his body. And then, at the beginning he starts to cry, but when she's singing the song, which I would love for you to please, if I say, you say Malio, if I say Malio, Malio, and clapping, and that's what she does normally, and it makes the boy really joyous when the water is being spread. Thank you. So the song goes like, Malio, Malio, then you say Malio, yeah? Malio, 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 Nawa, Malio, Malio, Naje Ilori, Malio, Tauba, Malio, 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 Nawa, Malio. So this is very popular with children in the north of Nigeria, and they love this song. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amina. So today, I'm going to be talking about the silent voice of an African child. A child that is so full of life, active and always bubbling with so much energy. As it is with life generally for everyone, anybody that has a human existence, sometimes in life you could just have something happening that could turn your life around. And so here goes my story. In Nigeria, when we want to tell a story, we say story, and the audience would say story. So I'm going to start my story that way. And when I say once upon a time, you're going to say time. That is how we tell a story back home in Nigeria. I'm sure, Tochi, you actually know that is what we do. So now, story. Once upon a time, time. There was this 7-year-old boy who lived, excuse me, who lived with his family, a polygamous family. The father actually had 3 wives. The mother of this boy is the last of the 3 wives, and the boy is the 7th out of 10 children. The boy's name, I'm going to give a fictitious name. The boy is Ahmed, and somehow life happens to this very joyous and bubbly child. Ahmed had a spinal infection, and afterwards he sustained a spinal cord injury that was poorly managed where he lives in the northern parts of Nigeria. And Ahmed became paraplegic. And that is what we're trying to depict with this our image here. Ahmed's father is a farmer, lives in a rural setting in the northern part of Nigeria, and in those settings we have these extremes of heat. Sometimes you could have heat as high as 42 degrees Celsius at those places. And each time Ahmed gets into that season where you have extremes of heat, he becomes very irritable. He was always crying, like Amina said, always crying, very cranky. Sometimes he's withdrawn. And this actually made his parents to be worried about what exactly is wrong with this boy. They've been having to cope with the burden of having a child that has a spinal cord injury. Now we have this second burden of the extremes of heat. And from what Amina said, Ahmed's body and brain could not respond appropriately to the environmental changes in temperature. Lo and behold, because they lived in a rural setting, they could not afford a fan. Fans that are electrically powered. And of course, again, there is lack of electricity supply where they live in Nigeria. So there was this challenge of how can we mediate? How can Ahmed have these cooling effects because of his condition and the extremes of heat that he has to cope with? And we know what happens when we talk about spinal cord injury. There's problem with thermoregulation, and sometimes these individuals could have autonomic dysreflexia. So in a bid to address this problem that Ahmed had and the family, Ahmed's father, so initially they actually felt that there was something wrong. They had this myth about spinal cord injury, so they didn't want to go to seek medical intervention. But lo and behold, after a while, they were persuaded to go to the clinic. And Ahmed's father was introduced to another spinal cord injury survivor, an adult this time around, who also sustained the injury during childhood. Many options were given to Ahmed's father to help this once upon a time bubbling child who has now become very irritable and withdrawn. There were the options of hair conditioner, the options of getting cooling vest, the options of having ceiling fans, the options of having battery operated hand fans, and there was this option of having spray bottles that can be locally made, that will not have water in them and you can now spray. That is the concept we're trying to bring about with this spraying of water for Ahmed. And looking at all of these options, the only one that was viable for Ahmed, considering that context of where Ahmed and his family lived, is the use of the spray bottle. And somehow they were able to get something that could be locally made in terms of, they just made it somehow and they made holes in it and they had something to use it to spray the water. So each time they were in the season of extremes of heat, that was what was used. And again, Ahmed gradually became the active, joyous Ahmed that was always willing to stay under the tree to enjoy the tales by moonlight from his parents. So the playful component of water, we all know that children generally, they love to play with water. So having to spray Ahmed with water as the only viable solution made Ahmed come back to life. Life is water, water is life. And an acronym about that life, living in the fullness of energy. L for living. Ahmed now came back to life. He was able to live in the fullness of energy. The spray bottle became a source of life for Ahmed, especially when he's in the company of his siblings, the other 9 siblings. Ahmed was able to enjoy life fully. He enjoyed this play. And the song that we sang initially, Ahmed now came back to singing that song. I hope you still remember singing that song with his family. And the message we're just trying to pass across is that when we talk about innovation, there is no one size fits all. We look at the context, we have to provide pragmatic solutions to deal with the impacts of extremes of heat in whichever condition, in whichever space that we find ourselves, especially when we are considering the silent voice of a child who seemingly is not often heard in our context in Nigeria. The components of what we have on the screen, we have the child who is a wheelchair user because of his condition as a paraplegic. Then the joy of the splash of water bringing that child back to life. So life in itself, we're talking about the quality of life. We can actually enhance the quality of an individual that is faced with the consequences of climate change by simple innovations, being pragmatic. And I say that quality of life is important. Quantity is also important, but I would want to lay emphasis on the quality of life that we give to individuals. So we're going to be ending our presentation by singing our song again and just having a mental image of Ahmed in his little town, little village, surrounded by his siblings, surrounded by his grandmother, singing that song, sitting on his wheelchair and enjoying life, singing that song. Amina.
Malio, Malio,
Malio,
Malio, Nawa,
Malio,
Irakajene,
Malio,
Naje Ilori,
Malio,
Yoshe Zakadao,
Malio,
Say Watangobe.
Malio.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.